Background on Judge Gonzalo Curiel. He's a son of Mexican immigrants whose parents came to the U.S. with an elementary school education. He spent 17 years as a federal prosecutor in California before being nominated to the district court judge by President Obama. That was back in November 2011. He was confirmed 10 months later. Francisco Hernandez is an immigration attorney. Thad Bingle is the principal at Command Consulting Group and former chief of staff for U.S. Customs and Border Protection. All right, so I'll start with you first, Francisco. What are the legalities here? You just heard all the details involved in this case. But bottom line, this man was a dreamer until he crossed over into Mexico without permission, and then he lost that protection.
If he crossed, he crossed. I bet there's plenty of surveillance video that we're going to see if he crossed or he didn't cross. There's no more protected by surveillance video area than the border checkpoints or entry or departure points. But that's beside the fact, and the fact that we're talking about a judge, a federal judge that was confirmed by a Republican Senate, mind you, after 2011. But what happened to President Trump's 10-point plan? The anchor, the sacred cow of his candidacy was to reform immigration. Number one, start building the wall. On this channel, I offered to come down and start helping building the wall as long as we did the 10-point plan. Where did it go?
All right, so interesting point. So, Thad, I want to roll on some sound from Susan Collins. She's a Maine GOP senator. She actually talks about how she agreed with Trump's policy, but she finds this in contradiction to his own policy, talking about not supporting illegal immigration and children's rights. Watch this.
I'm troubled by it. It seems to me that if a child is brought here by his parents, that child really didn't have any say in the decision to come here. I don't support illegal immigration, but that isn't the child's fault.
You know, and she went on to say, Thad, but it does seem to contradict the president's own policy because he, too, has expressed sympathy for children who were brought here and have grown up here and, in some cases, know no other language.
But bottom line, I'm sorry.
I don't know if Senator Collins had all the facts that were just articulated by William Lajeunesse and then Francisco,
right,
that, in fact, this individual had status, had left the country perhaps without following the process to get permission in advance. And that's not unique to Dreamers, by the way. That's true for any lawful permanent resident seeking a permanent green card. They're prohibited from leaving the country without advance permission. I don't think it represents any change in policy or the expressions that the president has made or Secretary Kelly about Dreamers or DACA participants not being an enforcement priority. But what they've never said is that when we encounter somebody in the course of our normal duties, whether they're DACA or any other status who may be here illegally, that we're not going to do our job. They've been very clear about that from the candidacy all the way through the transition to when the administration took over on January 20th, that when our agents and officers on the front line encounter people, they're going to enforce the laws that are on the books. DACA is also not the law. It was an Obama executive order. So to the extent that the underlying immigration laws still apply here, in the case of this individual who maybe violated the status he was temporarily granted, you know, there's no change in policy and no change in the law.
But you did hear sort of a change in tone from the president since taking office. He said he would end the program during the campaign, but then he said since taking office, DACA is a very, very difficult subject for me. I will tell you. I'm sure you remember that moment, Francisco.
Oh, exactly. But the bottom line is the legal point that if President Obama's executive order was not valid because they claim he didn't have the authority to do it, then how could you revoke an invalid order? So in order to revoke it, he would have had to recognize that he did have the executive power to create that order. But all of this really just detracts from Congress's Senate and the House, Democrat and Republican, from their failure to pass immigration reform. Good, bad, or ugly, just do something. We've been clamoring for 17 years on this topic.
And then I'll let you have the last word, that if you could comment on the Judge Curiel presiding over this case and how that's going to go.
I don't think it's going to have any effect. Federal judges are held to a very high standard by their colleagues, by themselves, about not demonstrating bias. The fact that the candidate Trump criticized this judge, if he thinks that's going to have a bearing on his judgment, that he can't be completely independent and view the facts of this case on the merits, he should recuse himself. And of course, there's an appeals process after this potentially, if need be. So I don't think that's really going to be a factor.
Right, it's a complicated case and a lot of details to be yet still to be learned from it. Thanks to both of you for joining us.
Thank you, Sandra.